let's jump into the world of the LIV Tour and the PGA Tour. It was on the outset of the U.S. Open when the merger, don't call it a merger, and now agreement to have an agreement was shocking everybody. Where does that stand right now as we're hitting Open Championship Week, Alan?
Well, the big development since then, of course, were the Senate hearings. The hearings themselves were somewhat uneventful, but the document dump that accompanied the hearing, 276 pages, there was a lot of nuggets in there. I mean, the big revelation was that Yasir Al-Rumayyan, who's now the biggest shot caller in golf, was sort of sacrificed Greg Norman at the altar as part of this deal, which was not a shock, but to see it in the black and white of a Senate subcommittee appendix was interesting. The testimony from Jimmy Dunn, who was representing essentially the PGA Tour and this new entity, it was revealing because he was pretty clear, like, they have a long way to go to get this deal done. And the tour, their primary motivation was to end the litigation, which that was successful. The lawsuits were dismissed with prejudice, means they can't be refiled no matter what. And so on some level, the tour has already accomplished what they hoped to. How this framework agreement becomes something definitive, it's going to be very tricky, very painstaking negotiations. And LIV, the Public Investment Fund, clearly has the upper hand here, because if the deal is not consummated and things just go back to how they were beforehand, LIV is in a much stronger position, because there's going to be this push to get world ranking points for LIV Golf. That was spelled out in the framework agreement. That's been one of the biggest things that's reduced its credibility. And more to the point, all the players who stayed loyal to the PGA Tour, the tour was not loyal to them. So now there's no incentive whatsoever to say no to any LIV offers that could be forthcoming. So, LIV could finally get the players it's always wanted, the John Rahms, Hideki Matsuyamas, you name it. And why should these guys turn the money down when Jimmy Dunn and Jay Monahan and the whole tour infrastructure was happy to take the money in the end? So there's a lot of pressure on the PGA Tour now to get this deal done, and LIV clearly can ask for things that they've always wanted, or the Public Investment Fund, that is, and it's going to be very fascinating next few months to see what happens.
Yeah, because Jimmy Dunn and the PGA Tour have basically said they're in the driver's seat. They've got more board seats, if you will, on the new company, as they're referring it to, where the investment is exclusively the Public Investments Funds to make, and how the LIV Tour, you mentioned, Greg Norman thrown overboard. It does appear that the LIV Tour, if this merger, don't call it a merger, does in fact happen, would be no more, even though they're supposed to get a good hearing about it, right, with some players coming back into the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Where did that go? How did that evaporate over the last month from what you just said,
Well, so
Alan?
Here's the thing. On paper, the PGA Tour has more board seats, and they've been selling that as we have control. But the overarching lesson of this whole thing is that money always wins. And in what business does somebody put all the money in, but they don't have control? That never happens. The Public Investment Fund is putting the money in. They are going to have control, no matter how the board seats are divvied up. And just look at how we got to this moment. The PGA Tour had a player advisory committee. It had a board of directors. It had a defined governance system. And all that got tossed aside basically over cigars, where Al-Rumayyan kind of reshaped the entire future of the sport. So they're putting way too much stock in the board configuration, I believe. And that also goes to this issue of LIV's future. That's going to be decided by Yasir Al-Rumayyan, not by Jay Monahan or Jimmy Dunn or the board itself, because it can remain on this parallel track where the Public Investment Fund can have it both ways. They can keep LIV going, and they have total control of that product. And if they want to play more events in Saudi Arabia, or they want to take it to all these different corners of the world, they can schedule it however they want. They can completely use that as kind of this beachhead for whatever else they're hoping to accomplish through golf. The PGA Tour investment, that the PIF is on the hook for potentially. There's going to be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. They're not going to have that same kind of total control of the schedule and the granular details, but it does give them this authenticity and this stamp of approval from the ruling class that they've been seeking, and it does give the PIF entree into all the tour sponsors and all the business possibilities there. So I think they'll keep LIV going as long as they feel like it has value to them. And it's increasingly clear that there will be a LIV schedule in 2024 because it's going to take so long to get this other deal potentially done. And if the PIF walks away from LIV, they lose their leverage in this larger negotiation. So now it's possible that after 24, Yasir will say, you know what, we had a good run, but I want to put all my eggs in this new company, and that could happen, but it'll be his decision to make, nobody else's. And I think that LIV keeps announcing these sponsorship deals, the individual teams, the league itself, and the things that why there's this antitrust lawsuit is because the tour is fighting so hard to disenfranchise LIV and to marginalize it with its broadcast partners, with its vendors, with its sponsors. Those walls are all down now. And if LIV can get access to some of the tour distribution channels and get some of its tournaments on network TV or ESPN or whatever it might be, if they can start cutting deals with all these blue chip companies that the tour does business with, it's a much more viable business. So I wouldn't necessarily buy what Jay Monahan and Jimmy Dunn are selling. I feel like Yasir is really the ultimate shot caller on LIV's future, and he's gonna decide how this thing plays out.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.